Hello, my name is Tala Karkar Aspirat. I'm a doctoral student in curriculum and instruction. I'm presenting today my AERA proposal entitled A Reading Experience Under Occupation. This is the outline for my presentation that I'm going to follow, starting with the rationale and ending with stating the implication of my study. I grew up in Ramallah, Palestine during a time of the First Intifada from 1987 to 1991. This period of uprising and occupation directly influenced how Palestinians were educated. As an elementary school student, I had limited access to books and libraries. Reading never developed into a habit for me under these conditions because I only thought of reading as a tool of assessment used by our school. My teachers would always make us read passages and answer comprehension questions with no excitement. Even though I did not enjoy reading for pleasure, I did appreciate the rare and dangerous trips my family made to the British Council Library in Jerusalem. It was difficult to travel between cities in the time of the military and political turmoil. On these special occasions, I had access to more books. Then, when I was a student at Bethlehem University, I realized that my level of reading was behind my classmates. I spent extra time reading different kinds of texts to improve my reading. When I became the librarian at the French Girls' School, and I was shocked to see my students had very low motivation to read. I recognized the apathy towards reading that I had in my students. At this moment, I decided to make literacy and motivation my priority. I hope that my story will inspire other teachers to promote reading as a passion. My research question is, how does the experience of a Palestinian educator growing up during a period of occupation influence her efforts to promote reading? There is limited literature regarding the effect that access to reading affect the amount of reading done. Early 1992 and others indicated that there is a causal role in access to reading materials in the school and student motivation to read. Shannon 1992 points there have been few studies that examine the effect of the physical environment on learning and student motivation. Teachers play an essential role in increasing student reading engagement through creating enriching classrooms. Specifically, exemplary reading teachers devote a significant amount of time to support student engagement and build motivation for reading. When students organically grow their motivation for reading and make reading a habit, they will become confident readers. This paper employs narrative inquiry methodology using the autobiographical approach. It is the study of experience as story. Using this approach, the inquirer tells her lived experience using the three dimensions of narrative inquiry of temporality, sociality, and place. Clendenin and Connolly, 2000. Growing up, life was unpredictable, confusing, and violent. Many times, Israeli soldiers would come to our school and force the principal to shut it down. Even after they released us, we could still encounter other soldiers on the way home. One particular traumatic time, the soldiers stopped my siblings and I and searched our bags. They took our school books and ripped them up. As I watched my English and math books being ripped to shreds, I knew at that moment that my fight against the occupation would be through education. Learning during this time was such a challenge because there was so much uncertainty. We had curfews imposed on us, long periods when our school was closed. Our time at the school became so limited. At one point, our teachers had to cut the school curriculum to just four classes: Arabic, English, math, and science. My motivation to read seemed to decrease with each test. Books, especially children's books, were limited in supply. Our only access to large amounts of books was on our occasional trips to British Council Library in Jerusalem. To me, that library was like an amusement park for other children in the Western world. Later in life, when I realized that my reading skills were not as strong as my classmates, to catch up, I forced myself to read as much as I could. I loved reading eventually. When I was hired as a school librarian, I immediately noticed that my students lacked the motivation to read. I recognized my younger self in them. I did not want my students to struggle with reading as I had. I knew that the best way to prevent this would be to make reading an enjoyable habit for them. I searched and implemented new ways to promote reading. My goal was to change the current school culture to make reading part of the students' daily lives. One of the programs I used was the Reading Passport program. This program allowed students to read books, report, and record what they've read in their passports. There were 7 passports. At the end of every passport, a library committee member asked students some questions about the books they read. Once the student answered all the questions successfully, their passport was stamped, and they were given a new passport. Finally, when students completed all 7 passports, they received various rewards. This study adds to the limited literature on how personal narrative can showcase a reflection on how a life experience can affect student motivation towards reading.